All right, everybody, welcome back to the Move Podcast, brought to you by, yet again, Patron Tequila. Another year, a little more tequila. Third year in a row, sitting here doing this jam about the Tour de France. We're super excited. Obviously, we're talking about the 2019 upcoming Tour de France, starting this Saturday in Brussels, Belgium, home of the King, Eddie Merckx.
And in our third year, the show continues to grow and grow, and George is going to spend all 3 weeks with us again on this year's tour.
Also,
that's the plan.
Are you?
Yep.
That's
apparently.
amazing. Also, special shout out to Outside Magazine, yet again our partners, our media partners in a way, for this show. You can get sort of a diluted daily blog of this every day on Outside's website. That's the reason that we're here in a town that has a lot of trains, as you can hear behind us, Santa Fe, New Mexico, at our buddy Bill Banowski's really cool theater called Violet Crown.
And as this continues to grow, the support grows as well. Oh wait, here's our train. How about that? I was hoping one would come when the show starts, and here it is right out of the gate, rolling by.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
Should we wait?
It gets pretty quiet here pretty fast. I was listening to it earlier. It goes from the horn to pretty quiet. We can go on.
So when I think about this, look, anytime you talk about the Tour de France, you have to think about and talk about two things. You have to talk about the course and then the athletes, the riders. As we said after they revealed the course last October, on paper, initial impression is it's not overly exciting. Having said that, the athletes and the actors and the riders are the ones who make up the drama. They're the ones who make the action happen. And so, as we get into that aspect of this conversation, you can't ignore the fact that two of the big favorites are not here. Tom Dumoulin, who crashed really bad in the Tour of Italy, has pulled out, and then Chris Froome, arguably the biggest favorite, had a horrific crash just a couple of weeks ago that we can get into further. Both of those riders not here. So to me, it almost makes it more exciting. You have an opportunity for anybody to win the race, and we're all at the end of the show going to have to pick a winner. I think we're just going to have to kind of wing it because it's truly anybody's race.
It's also a testament. I couldn't help but think about it with Dumoulin and Froome, that people forget how difficult it is to stay healthy, to be a repeat. To have that run of 5 tours, 7, however many. Just staying healthy is a bit of a miracle in itself. There's just so many stars that have to align.
Well, I'm going to say this, and I want to get George's opinion after I say it, because it'd probably be different because he's so respectful. But what happened to Chris Froome? If we believe everything we read, out reconning the time trial course at the Dauphiné Libre on his time trial bike with all of the aerodynamic fixings, a bike that in perfect conditions is hard to handle with your hands on the bars. As the story goes, he had taken his hands off to put on a raincoat. There was video footage of right before the crash where the bike was shaking uncontrollably, and he kept trying to get this coat on, and we know the ending. I don't understand why a guy who's in that position with his experience, with everything on the line, you're not in the race. You're just reconning the course. Like, stop, pull over, put on the jacket. Even his teammate said to him, "Hey, Chris, there's no need to take risks." Walter Pulse, who was riding right beside him, said, "No need to take risks." And again, we know the ending. And so it's just, to me, that's just a guy of his caliber should never be doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it was when it happened, I tried to think of the number of times I actually took both hands off the bars on a time trial bike, and I think it was never, because those bikes, like you said, are super hard to handle. The front end is so narrow, and the front wheels, I believe he was riding a pretty deep dish front wheel, so it's just something you wouldn't do, and it was a momentary lapse of judgment on his part, I believe. I mean, it's a very unfortunate instance. I hate to see him out. Like you said, he was definitely one of the clear favorites. And now we have a much more open tour.
Yep. And you have an athlete who's 35 years old. With, as reported, if the injuries are that severe at 35 years old,
That's a major that's not like a setback at 25
that's a career
years old.
ender.
Yeah.
That's a career ender, potentially. I mean, he's proven to overcome other things in his life, but,
I'd like to see him come back, and I think he's got an incredible support team behind him. If anybody could do it, I'd say he probably could. So I'm not going to count him out just yet.
Some other people who we're not going to see at this year's tour, Cavendish, which a lot of people wanted to see him because he has 30 tour stage wins.
He's got a lot.
Knocking on a record. Maybe it isn't going to happen, but people enjoy that
no,
story.
it is not going to happen.
Right.
No, it's not happening.
Right. Let's see.
not.
Right.
Another person you cannot count out is Mark Cavendish. If you look at his record, the times he's been out, the times he's bounced back.
Look, I love Cav, but it's not going to happen.
Cav. We'll see. We'll see where he goes next year, if he stays where he's at or what. But he's finally in a good place. He feels healthy, and it's unfortunate he's not participating in this year's tour. But a guy like that's going to, I think that something like that will reinvigorate his focus, his passion for the sport, and who knows how he'll come back next year.
We'll talk about the lack of Americans again, an unfortunate continued story, but a lot of us kind of went, what? When we heard that Lawson Craddock was not added to the EF team.
Yeah.
After last year's incredible story, riding the entire tour with a broken scapula and a cut eye, and the charity story, and just people grew to love that guy.
Yeah. Well, that's true. All of that is true, and I feel for Lawson, and I pull for Lawson, and wanted obviously him to be here this year. But teams don't select riders because of charity stories or the feel-good story from last year, or how many fans you have. That's not we Johan and myself knew that better than anything. You had to make tough decisions, and no matter. I mean, they were year 2000. We had one French rider on the team. We only ever had. I had a couple French riders, but we didn't take Cedric Vasseur to the tour in 2000. And they were like throwing tomatoes. I mean, we were getting egged, and it was terrible. Like, you just have to make tough decisions, and
there's probably a lot of things that the general public doesn't know about their form, whether it's on the rise or on dwindling, and their replacement may be peaking at just the right time.
Yeah, we don't know what went into that decision. Everybody here at this table hates to see Lawson out of the tour. He's a great teammate. He's ridden incredibly well this season, but there might have been other factors into the decision to not bring him. I know that they're really focusing on that team time trial in the second stage, and he was actually at the team time trial training, which is kind of interesting that they perhaps have not made that decision up until a couple days ago.
As I read it, they brought 10 riders to Girona, Spain, and they had some sort of a selection process on how they were going to select the final 8, and so he was one of the 2 that didn't make it.
No.
So you can imagine. I mean, you're that close. You're sitting there looking around the dinner table, and you're like, all right, 2 of us are going to get kicked off the island tonight, and everybody there fully believes that they're going to be on the island. And so, yeah.
I was on that island in 1994. I don't know if you remember. No.
95.
I was the 10th man on the team. We were team time trial training with you guys, and I didn't make the squad the day before the race.
So for every story of heartbreak that they just didn't make the cut, there's usually one of like, holy shit, I just made the squad for the tour, right?
Yeah.
And the 9th guy has to go to the start, because you have to be, if somebody gets sick the morning of or the night before, you have to be close enough so that you can substitute that person. So I don't know. He may have to be.
Which also happened to us when Christian Vanderbilt got stung by a spider on the way to the race or the night before the race, and woke up with this huge swollen welt somewhere on his body, and he could not start the Tour de France.
Can I ask you a question?
What's that?
Do spiders sting or do they bite? I think they bite. Can we?
I don't know. I don't like thinking about spiders.
I think they bite.
I believe they bite. Bees sting.
Whatever. But he got bit, and he did not start the Tour de France.
All right, this is what everybody wants to hear you two talk about. I'll go through a lot of the favorites. You give me your thoughts. Of course, Froome and Dumoulin out. We've covered that. They were the absolute favorites. Let's start with last year's returning winner, Garen Thomas. I think that's the best place to start.
I want George to go first.
So I'm quite interested to see how Garen rides this year. Last year, obviously, he rode an amazing Tour de France. Everything went perfect for him. He had great form. He has not had the same build-up this year as he did last year. Last year, he won Dauphiné. This year, he crashed out of the Tour of Switzerland. So I don't think he's in the same place that he was last year. I'm not going to count him out, obviously, as a former Tour de France winner. But I believe his preparation last year was better.
If he won the Dauphiné in preparation last year, why would you not use that same plan? Doesn't matter, toss up.
Because Froome was apparently riding really well, so I think
Okay.
Yeah,
I think
that-
they might have been leaning towards Froome. Who knows? But that would be my guess.
Yeah, I agree with George. I think he's and I've also heard that he's actually riding really well. Now, nothing can replace actual race days. Just days. I mean, we always tried to go into the Tour with, I think, 40 to 45 race days. I bet you Garen Thomas has less than 20. That's a guess.
Yeah.
Really hard to show up at that level with so few race days, and also not just from a fitness standpoint, but just from being in the peloton with 200 guys the first week of the Tour de France, where it's aggressive and everybody is fighting for themselves, and 20 more days, 25 more days of having practiced that in the 3 or 4 months before makes a big difference. And so that's the one knock on him, and I think that's the knock within the team, even though I hear he's riding well, is that his tendency to crash is an issue. And so
Well, especially you throw on all the pressure of being the former champ of the Tour de France, and then you have that fairly serious crash in Tour of Switzerland where he had to go to the hospital, had to drop out of the race, which in our world, it means it's a really hard crash. That's going to be in the back of his mind throughout that first week, where it's super stressful, super hectic, and you're taking risks all day long to stay in the front. So if that's in the back of your mind, I can see that as being a bit of an issue.
And he's going to have the same dynamic he had last summer. We have a team that's declared there's 2 leaders, and how they try to manage personalities and loyalties. And
So let's talk about that teammate, and then more on that dynamic. Egan Bernal, who is recovered from, what was it, a broken collarbone, or
fully recovered.
Yeah, he's recovered and looking good. Yeah. So, and they're considering it a co-leader situation. Garen Thomas has got to be going, really? Froome, when do I get to be the guy?
Yeah. Well, and the thing, I don't know a lot about Bernal, and I guess most of us, or many of us, don't, because he's 22 years old. I mean, this is a kid who's he's had incredible results in a very young career. I find it personally hard to believe that a 22-year-old can win a 3-week Tour de France. Most people out there are picking him to win. And the one thing that I worry about, aside from the age and the maturity and the experience, is just as a skinny Colombian climber, how can you handle yourself in the peloton and in tricky situations? I saw a video clip from Tour of Switzerland, which he won dominantly, like he could have won with one leg. In the final time, in the only time trial, or in the only real time trial, there was a left-hand bender that he got a little hot on. It came in a little hot, and 99% of that peloton would have crashed. He held it up, kept it up.
I saw that, yeah.
And I thought, how the hell did he do that? As I've researched him more and more, I just this morning I learned that as a junior, he finished 3rd at the World Mountain Bike Championships twice. So a kid that can get top 3 at the World Mountain Bike Championships, I don't care what country you're from, you know how to ride a bike. And so the way he saved it, that sort of answered that question for me. It's like, all right, I think he'll be okay. But I worry more just about the age.
I mean, what are the other big differences between 22 and 32? I mean, if anyone here have a 22-year-old at home, I mean, they're likely to make a mistake, don't you think?
Yeah.
Is that what it boils down to? It's just maybe they screw up nutrition or sleep.
I think it's miles in the legs and just experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a bigger foundation. These guys that are in their 30s have had several Grand Tours in their legs, and the chances of them having that one bad day I believe, are less than a 22-year-old.
Yeah. All right, we've got some more names to bang through because it is a bit of a toss-up this year. Jakob Fuglsang.
I'm busy with something, George. Go ahead.
So Jakob's had his best year ever to date in his career, winning Liège, winning Dauphiné, where he didn't even look like he was struggling. He's got to be one of the top favorites in my opinion, and lots of others' opinions as well. Very complete, dynamic rider, can handle his bike, has one of the strongest teams in the peloton behind him. So I think he's definitely going to be a podium contender, if not the winner.
Any thoughts on that one?
I think Fuglsang, I think he's having a career year. I think, and this is, if he wants to win the Tour de France, this is his last chance to do it, just because he's getting up there in age, and not that he's old, but it just gets harder and harder after this. And look at the season. I mean, the spring season he had, the way he dominated at the Dauphiné, and might have one of the best teams in the race. So he has he does have the experience, he does have the form, and he does have the team. And we just have to assume he has the passion and the motivation. And so, I mean, I guess if anybody is going to force me to pick a favorite, I would probably pick him.
Wow.
I thought we were doing that at the end of the show.
I was just a little teaser. I might change my mind.
Okay.
I know you could sway his opinion before this is over. We'll see. And this seems unfair, but we all do it. We talk about Simon and Adam Yates as if it's one rider that just swaps out from one.
That would be a lot easier if it was.
Right.
I get really confused by that whole thing. and I have twins. Are they twins?
I don't know if they're twins. They're definitely brothers, but
we'll call them twins.
I mean, they seem to ride similarly and have similar issues.
Yeah, but you know I haven't followed other than the stuff I've watched at the Tour of Italy. It's tactically maybe an Achilles heel for them. Have a great team, can't deny that. Here comes the train again.
Train's coming.
This is what you get. This is Santa Fe, baby. Those of watching it on video are getting a nice little treat.
Yeah, I like those guys. I like their riding style. I think they're super aggressive. They're not scared of anybody. They have a really strong team behind them, and they're always on the attack. So I think no matter where they end up in the race, they're gonna make it exciting, and they're gonna make it aggressive. Thoughts
on Thibaut Pinot? Start with you, George.
I think Thibaut's been on the podium before in 2014. He's definitely a candidate for the podium, in my opinion. He can climb. He's one of the best climbers in the world. He's got a solid team behind him. So I think we'll see him up there, probably on the podium, but definitely a stage winner or two.
Yeah, I'm with George on that.
Okay, Nairo Quintana.
I stopped short of saying choker. It's just not. He there's always so much hype and so much expectation, and he just doesn't deliver it. I don't think. I think if there's a Colombian story this year, it's Egan Bernal. It's not. Imagine being like one of these Colombian. It's so competitive. The race is competitive, but don't be fooled. Guys in the race, like everybody wants to be the first Colombian. They want to be the first American. They want to be the first Frenchman. They want to. I mean, there's now three of these 10 favorites are Colombian. I mean, imagine just they may pretend to be friends and act like they're friends, but damn, they all want to be the first Colombian. And then the news story back home. And so between Iran, Bernal, and Quintana, I think Quintana's the third Colombian. And we'll let the Colombian answer.
Yeah, that's gonna be a tough one. I mean, Quintana's won a Grand Tour before. He's got the experience. He has not had in the last 2 years lived up to his potential, but I'm not going to count him out this year's Tour, and I'm also not going to count out Iran. Iran has not had a great season up until now. He said in the press the other day that he feels like the Tour de France is the start of his season. He rode a really good race right before the Tour. I think he's in great shape. I think he's got one of the best teams for the team time trial. So between those three Colombians, we're going to see a lot from them.
Well, you're the person to ask. Is there something in the Colombian mindset that gives them an edge? Like the Americans, I could say, are kind of bold and brash. What is it with the Colombians?
Well, it's actually similar to the Americans. Once you get to that level, I mean, you've left your whole family behind you. You have to find a new home and far, far away from all of your friends and relatives, and you are 1,000% committed to the sport. So if you're there, you might as well try to succeed. Whereas, these guys, of course, everybody works as hard, the Europeans and all that, but they're home and they don't have to sacrifice a lot of the things that we had to.
Interesting.
And
Never thought about that.
just one more thing on Nairo Quintana, as we were talking about with Garen Thomas and Egan Bernal, this dynamic of having to split team leadership with two guys. Quintana's splitting team leadership, I promise you, with three guys.
Yeah.
Two other guys, so a total of three. So not just himself, Mikel Landa, and the old Wile E. Coyote, Alejandro Valverde. I would not, I mean, if I had to just say a long shot crazy pick, he can win the Tour de France.
Yeah.
And this is his last opportunity to do that. And so, just the morally, I don't know how, it's just really hard to manage that situation. And so maybe that's what, is a struggle for Quintana, but it's, make no mistake, and no doubt, there are three leaders.
Thoughts on Mikel Landa?
Well, Lance just touched upon it. I mean, he's out of those two guys on Movistar, he's the best time trialist. But he's got the Giro in his legs, so it really just depends on how he recovered from the Giro. He started riding really well at the end of the Giro, but we don't know. I don't know how he rode or how he trained in between now and the Giro.
And not much time trial on this
Not
course.
much time trials. I mean, if you think about a Tour de France, and this just really borderline pisses me off, that has 27 kilometers, so that's, where's my math, like 16 miles or so of individual time trials in the Tour de France, the greatest bike race in the world. That's not acceptable. Having said that, all of these guys come back into the equation. A guy like Landa, who can't time trial to save his life, even a guy like Fuglsang, who can somewhat, but that helps him. I mean, now you start to bring all of these other players back into the fold with 27 kilometers of individual time trialing.
And the French guys. That could be a reason why
there's... And Roman Bardet. We're going to get to Bardet, but I mean, it's just, it's probably one of these things where I get all mad and say how unacceptable this is, and then the thing is so exciting, and at the end I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. They should have no time trials. Right. That's probably something I would say.
Well, they did say that when we did I was looking back at our route preview, they wanted more Category 2 climbs instead of bigger climbs, just to keep it up in the air. Which, after watching Froome dominate for so many years, I know that the public wants that maybe.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned Bardet, so let's go to that.
Yeah, I think a lot of question marks around his form and fitness, his health. He had said he was sick a couple of weeks ago. You never know. I mean, guys say they're sick and play possum, essentially. So nobody, a young French guy who's the French favorite, I mean, you can't get more motivated than that. I wouldn't rule him out. I think his team is probably, I always used to rag on that team and talk about how weak they are. They're probably a little better than that. But
I'd say their team's pretty good.
Yeah, the guys they're bringing, that's not a bad team. And again, no TTs, or very little TTs.
All right, a few more. Let's hit on a few more favorites pretty fast. Rigoberto Iran, we haven't talked about.
George touched on him. I mean, I think big question mark again. Not much this season, and but has good support.
Yeah, and the team already named him the clear leader, even though our TJ is riding super well. Got second place in the Dauphiné. Has had a great middle part of the season. So their team is really strong this year, and I think we'll see a lot out of them.
Okay, Vincenzo Nibali.
Yeah, I mean, never say never. I mean, he's won the bike race before. He's had, he has the experience. He has a decent team. Although he's leaving that team, I don't think that's to be totally discounted. Did the Tour of Italy, so you never know how guys recover. There's a lot of guys in that boat between himself and Landa, and et cetera. I mean, you never know how guys bounce back. But he's a bike racer. I mean, you tape the numbers on his back and tell him where the start and the finish line are, and he races.
And Richie Port, we talked about him a lot 2 years ago until he hit the wall.
I think for sure he will win the Ironman one day. For sure. I believe he can win the Ironman.
Really?
He grew up a great swimmer.
You're recommending this, it sounds like. Hey, dude, go win the Ironman.
I think he's had a tough year. I hope he bounces back at the Tour, but he's not living up to his full potential this season.
Okay. We talked a lot this season about Peter Sagan being a little bit off. Now we're talking about winning some punchier stages and sprints and things like that, but he seems to be coming back on form. Whatever was going on, he's fixed to some degree, don't you think?
We shall see. I think he looks better. He is my pick to win the opening stage and put on the first yellow jersey of this Tour. This finish on stage 1 in Brussels ends with about the last 500 meters is about 4.5 to 5%. I think that's just hard enough that the really fast guys just have to try too hard and they're not fast anymore. George, we were chatting earlier. He disagrees with me, but I'm calling it right now. Peter Sagan puts on the first yellow jersey and wins his 7th green jersey.
Are we doing the pick right now for Saturday?
We'll get to that. Hold on to that.
All right, okay, I'll wait then.
Thoughts on Sagan?
He's
similar.
Bounced back. Hasn't had the year that he's had in the past, but obviously Switzerland he's been riding really well, and I believe he spent the month of May or end of May to sometime in June in Park City, Utah, getting some altitude training. So he's prepared well, and he should be ready for a good Tour.
Okay, I know you
make party. Make party.
I know both of you guys love the team time trial. I think the first year they threw it at you guys, people were like, "Oh, okay, this is where we can get a leg up on them," and you guys killed it. So I know you love it. Do you have a favorite for the team time trial day 2?
Gotta go back to my notes.
Go back to your notes, George. I like Mitchelton Scott. I think between Luke Durbridge and the Yates brothers and the rest of that team, it's a complete team. The thing you have to look about for with a team time trial is it is truly an 8-man race. If you have three of the strongest guys in the world and 5 guys that just suck, you cannot win, because you will drop those weaker. The team has to be completely balanced, or as balanced as possible, and I think they have it the best. And I wouldn't throw out or dismiss or discount Education First. I think they'll be up there as well. Quick Step. God, I saw a stat. Where is this stat? You guys like stats. I like stats. Check this out. So Quick Step has won 46 bike races this year. 46 bike races. Whereas these other teams like Katusha, 5 bike races. Trek, all this money, 6 bike races. Quick Step has won 46 bike races. I mean, that shows you the depth of that team. And so, back when we raced, that program, because it's the same program now that it was before, has totally changed. They weren't good at the team time trial back then, but they are now. So throw their name into the mix as well.
Yeah, you can't count them out. They're going to be right up there. I'm going to go with EF Education. They spent training camp in Girona. I kind of followed it a bit closely. I think they have guys like TJ Iran, Simon Clark, Bonifacio, who won Tour of Flanders. A lot of strong rouleurs that can really hammer on the flats, and a good technical team behind them. So they're going to be my pick for the second stage.
I know one of the things that bugs you a bit, Lance, and we'll get your thoughts on it, George. It's like you're like, where are the iconic finishes? The ones that everybody knows, the ones that you look for, the ones you've seen before, and you want to see how fast these riders today go up versus 20 years ago.
Right.
But they're not there this year.
No, they're the only one we can say is the Tourmalet. But then typically you would have one of these, let's just call it a famous climb or an iconic climb in both sets of mountains. So you'd have the Tourmalet in the Pyrenees, and then you'd have Alpe d'Huez in the Alps, and then maybe even throw in a Mont Ventoux in the middle of France. There's no Ventoux. There's no Alpe d'Huez. They go over the Galibier, they go over the easy side, otherwise known as the Loteret, and then bomb down and finish on a downhill. I look at these and the Alps are obviously second this year, Pyrenees first. Where's the Yankee Stadium? I mean, we're like playing at the Little League field. I mean, it's still being hopefully a good game. But like, why are we not playing at Yankee Stadium?
I think, obviously there's not the big names, but it's a Tour de France. The racing is going to be hard. It's going to be aggressive. I mean, they added a couple of kilometers to Plage de Belle-Fige, which is stage 6. What was the average gradient of that? 10 kilometer climb at like 9% average?
Yeah, but there's pitches of 20, and then the final kilometer is at 24%.
Yeah. I think we won't have a lack of hard finishes at this tour, although we might not recognize all the names.
And get right to it. The thing that really jumped out at me as I was finally looking through all this is, as far as I can remember, and my memory's not that good, I don't remember the last time that we didn't have an individual time. I'm going to go back on this, an individual time trial on the second to last day. There's always an individual time trial on Saturday before Paris.
No.
Not this year. So now they're giving us this 130-kilometer mountain stage that has a 33-kilometer climb at 5%. It's like, we can leave early. We can go for a bike ride early, man. There's no need to watch it.
I don't know about that. Well, I think it'll still be exciting.
No. This peloton in this day and age,
Pull up the profile.
as strong as they are collectively, 5% doesn't make a difference. You mark my words. You'll all regret sitting at home and watching. You'll rather be out on your bike.
I'll take that bet.
What stage is that?
It's the Saturday. It's the second to last day.
Second to last
this
day.
This is the day where
nothing big happening. All right.
If you
now I'm going to remember that and see what happens.
Yeah.
Because it did happen this season where we're like, nothing's happening today, and then we're all texting each other like, holy shit, did you see this? All right. We're going to take a quick reset here and do
Can I just say one thing very quick? I want to touch on before we get to the question.
Yeah.
So I would be remiss if I didn't thank the people that have made this possible for us to do this and to do it for 3 weeks and put it out to the world. As y'all loyal listeners and members have noticed over the years, last year we added some advertisers. Obviously, Patron Tequila, our presenting sponsor, had some great advertisers last summer, many of which are returning. But I just want to touch on them right quick, just say their name, and then as we go along, you'll hear some of their ads and hear about their great products. So obviously, Patron, Power Dot is back. Roca, who I'm just loving their sunglasses. High Brew Coffee, back, all new cans, all new designs. Road ID, Amp Human Performance, and The Feed. So thanks to all of them for making this possible for all of us.
If you want to start making your way up here, if you have a question, right over.
I say Tori goes first. Tori is back.
Surely she has a question in front. And then after the Q&A, we do want to talk about what we're doing with Johan that continues, and what we're doing for members, and some new toys, some new merch toys. Oh, yeah, real quick. Thank you for the reminder, George, because we do, especially with our audience. I mean, our audience is global, but a good majority of it American-based. Which Americans are riding this year?
Yeah, so we wanted to touch real quickly on, we only have 4 Americans in the race. We got Ben King riding for Dimension Data, won 2 stages of the Tour of Spain last year. I believe this might be his first Tour de France. I'm not sure, but great.
I don't know, but he's a great kid.
Really great guy.
You want to root for somebody? If you want to root for an American, they're all great kids, I'm sure. But this Ben King is an A+, as a human, and he has. And I don't want to get into it because it's really not my business. But he has a really personal, amazing story that you can just look it up, and the courage that it took for him to tell that story. Is most people wouldn't tell it. And so you want to cheer for somebody, Ben King.
I agree. Ben King's a great guy. Happy to see him at the Tour de France. We got Chad Haga, won a stage of the Tour of Italy. Super excited to see him win that time trial, racing in Tour de France. Maybe can win the time trial midway through the race. So we'll be rooting for him throughout the tour.
And he's a Texan.
Joey Roscoff, another Southerner in the race, was raced for my team several years ago. Really dynamic, exciting rider. I'm really happy to see him back at the Tour de France. And last but not least, TJ Van Garderen, who had an amazing Dauphiné Libéré, and I think he's back to his top form. And I think he'll go a long way in this Tour de France. I'm really excited to watch him race, and I'll be rooting for him.
All right. Where's our girl Tori? There she is. She became a star last year. Do you remember what she said? That we
No,
were
I
just
was going to say, what made her a star? I've already forgotten.
I bet she remembers.
She
Come on up here,
remembers.
Tori. Come here.
But just so everybody knows, the people sitting here at the theater and then also
Right
just
here.
listening at home or watching home, Tori emails me regularly.
Still?
Yep. I get,
You guys are
I
like
get
pen
invited
pals.
to birthday parties and school plays, and I get asked to send her dad birthday cards. And so we're in regular communication. So that's why she gets to go first.
What did we talk about last year when you were here?
What they eat for breakfast.
Oh, that's right. You had the spaghetti for breakfast.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a question this year?
Yeah. You said that you went to Iceland. Did you bike there?
So I just got back. Anna and I just got back from Iceland, maybe a little over a week ago. Have you ever been to Iceland? Okay, so we did bike there. We mountain biked. The Iceland, and George is over here smirking because he's always trying to get me to go to Iceland. And I was like, nah, man, too far. But we went after we dropped our kids at summer camp, and I've never. It's hard to imagine a more beautiful country, and just the different sceneries and not climates. There are different climates, but it's incredible. So we biked there and had a great bunch of hosts that showed us around and saw most of the country. It was. I highly recommend you go. You can go with us next time.
Tori, who do you think is going to win the Tour this year?
I don't know.
Okay.
JB Hager. Do you think JB Hager has a chance?
Maybe.
Have you been riding your bike?
Yeah.
What's the farthest you've ridden?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, don't worry about the distance. Just have fun.
Yeah.
I went to here.
You what?
I went here.
You went here on your bike? From where?
Our house.
Okay. Any idea how far away that is?
No.
No
Perfect. Perfect.
Doesn't matter, really, does it? Okay.
I just came back from summer camp, and I was wondering if you do any when you were my age. Did you do any biking summer camps?
No. I wasn't really a summer camp type kid. Does that make sense?
Not really, but okay.
While I reset this mic and camera, why don't you tell them about Johan and then what we did in the Giro and how we're going to add that dynamic to the Tour this year.
Yeah. So what happened after we did this podcast the first year in 2017 was you guys and gals just wanted more. You wanted us to cover the Tour of Spain, the Tour of Italy, the World Championships, the classics, and quite honestly, I mean, I was like, I can't take it. I can't watch any more bike races. And so we added the classics. We've done some other things. But what we did at the Tour of Italy was I went to my old friend Johan and said, what if we did a show with you? And actually, this was JB's idea. It's not so much a recap show, but it's a preview show. You were the best tactician that ever lived. What if you did a show and you talked about what you would do in the race the next day from a tactical standpoint? Yes, there has to be a bit of a review, but then talk about what you would do as yourself the next day. And so that show during the Tour of Italy did amazingly well.
Johan's great, and
he knows more than anybody. And so, I twisted his arm again, and he's agreed to come back during the Tour de France and do his own show with JB, sort of previewing what he would do if he was in the shoes and the seat of some of these directors sportifs.
So we'll spend some time each day right after the race ends doing more recap like we have been doing, and Johan will go much deeper and more focused on tactics and tomorrow for both teams, individuals, everything. And it's really good. It was really fun during the Giro, and he predicts a lot of things very accurately. Yeah. It's frightening. And also, if there's something we just launched about this time last year and had a lot of fun with it was our membership portal. Yep. If you want to see what this looks like, going down live behind the scenes, a little bit of pre-show just before we go live, unedited, the real deal, you can sign up now at wedo.team. You'll see a season pass icon, and it's a lot of fun. And it gets you discounts in the store, which we've, again, for the third year in a row, have beefed up the store. Lots of new merch in the store and cool gear.
Yep. As well as the members-only tee, like the exclusive tee. That's a tweak on last year's. So we're excited. We're going to go home tonight. Tomorrow is, normally the 4th of July is during the tour. And so like on July 5th, I can hardly speak. I've had so much rosé the entire day before. Like we do this big thing in Aspen. They have like a classic Americana parade. So they've got all these floats, and they've got the veterans and the fire department and all, whatever. All the politicians are out there. And so we have kind of an all-day fun little shindig. George has never been, but that is tomorrow. So thank goodness I'll have a couple days to get over that before we get started.
Yeah. So, you'll get to do that for the first time, and you get a recovery day before the tour goes live.
That's what I'm saying. I will be ready. I promise you, I'll be ready.
All right. Thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Bill Banoski, Violet Crown Cinema, right here in the Rail Yard in Santa Fe. Sandra Bryce, who's the director of the Rail Yard district down here, was very, very helpful with a lot of things. So we appreciate everybody's support here in Santa Fe, and another great visit.
Thank you.